So, for ancient India, today we will be dealing with prehistory, the Stone Age, and then Indus Valley Civilization. So, where does history begin? Can anyone answer where does history actually begin? Do we begin with writing? Or do we begin with the first human being? We do not begin with writing. We do not begin with first human being. We begin with as far as our science can take us back. Okay? We begin with as far as our science can take us back. Our only difference here is archaeology. You will learn different features about Indus Valley Civilization, prehistory era, the Stone Age. Okay? So, for example, if we found a certain material here in India, there's a material, okay, called lapis lazuli, okay, which is a kind of material used for ornamentation. So, if it is found in India, we can presume that it came from Afghanistan, because that's the place where this particular material is found in abundance. But we cannot say for sure, right? The only thing we have is evidence that we found lapis lazuli here in India. So the archaeologists will tell us that lapis lazuli was found in India, but it is up to us to assume, it is up to us to try to understand why it really came to India, or which kind of trade routes they followed, which were the countries they were in connection with. Okay, so I will not give you guys concrete evidence of this and that. I will only give you what happened, what is there, and maybe we can try a little bit to try to assume why it was here, and then we can try to understand the different trade routes that they use, the different kind of networks that they built with different countries based on the exports that we found in India and the imports of India found in other countries. Okay, that's how we are going to interact. Now, so history, the only difference that we have is archaeology. Okay, the archaeologists will study the tools, the settlement, agriculture, urbanization to try to define different civilizations across time. Okay, so the early phases are reconstructed mainly through archaeological evidence, human settlements, technology and tools, agriculture, urbanization, political and social institutions. When it comes to tools, for example, if they find a plow, okay, we know that they practice farming. Or if we found bow and arrow, it means that they practice hunting and so forth. Okay. Now, how do we know about prehistory India? How do we know about prehistory India? We know about prehistoric India through stone tools found at different sites in India, through caves and rock shelters. Okay, we understood that they took shelter in those caves, through burials. When it comes to burials, right, there are certain types of burials: double burial, single burial, burial with stuffs, with rice and different kinds of food materials. So if a person is buried with, let's say, some rice and cereals, okay, and some ornaments, we begin to infer that they believe in the afterlife. Maybe. We cannot say for sure. Like I said, archaeologists, they only tell us that such things were found alongside the body. Okay, and it is up to us to guess. That's how history works. So, and then archaeological sites like Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Tholavira, Luni, and so forth, you will learn about that in the later slides. So that's how we know about prehistoric India, a time in the history of India when written records were not available. Okay, so this is prehistoric India, the Stone Age. It is divided into Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic, and Chalcolithic. So Paleolithic means old stone, Mesolithic means middle stone, Neolithic means new stone, Chalcolithic means copper stone, or we can say copper age. Copper age, old stone age, middle stone age, new stone age, and copper age. Okay, so Paleolithic spans from 2 million to 10,000 BC, before Christ. Remember, it is 2 million years away from year 1, up to 10,000 years away from year 1. They are getting closer to us. And from 10,000 years away from year 1, all the way up till 8,000 years away from year 1 is Mesolithic. And 8,000 years away from year 1, all the way till 4,000 years away from year 1. That's Neolithic, and 4,000 years away from year 1, all the way till 1,500 years away from year 1. Okay, and then after 1,500 years will come the civilization and so forth, and then it will reach year 1, 2, 3, 4, 2026. Oh, you get the idea, right? You get the idea. Okay, so this is Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic, and Chalcolithic. We will dig deeper into all these 4 divisions. Now let's start with Paleolithic age. Please take a look at the Paleolithic age. I will give you guys a few seconds. So the Paleolithic age, the people during the Paleolithic age, they lived in open areas, river valleys, caves, and rock shelters. Okay, so this is AI generated, and it shows the typical Paleolithic life and culture of that time. And they were primarily hunters and food gatherers. Okay, now what do we find here? There is no agriculture. They did not practice agriculture during the Paleolithic age. The only thing they did was hunting and food gathering. Okay, now no agricultural pottery is a very important point for your examination when it comes to Paleolithic age. Okay, and they also use rough, unpolished tools. And what are the tools that they use? Hand axe, chopper, blade, bearing, scraper. Okay, hand axe was all these were stone tools. Okay, hand axe was a large stone tool. It was generally used for cutting, chopping multiple tasks. And chopper, again, it's a stone tool with a very sharp edge used for chopping. Scraper for scraping wood, kurila, chamra ulai diole maybe. And also bearing, we have bearing. Again, it was a pointed stone tool. It was associated with, it was meant for, piercing the animals and so forth. And we also have the blade used for cutting. Okay. So now we have seen all this Paleolithic technology, and so these are the Paleolithic technologies. Okay, and this is a pictorial representation of the Paleolithic technology. We have the hand axe, we have the cleaver, we have the chopping tool, we have the flag, blade, point, scraper, boner, needle, harpoon, fishing tool, bone point. Okay, these were the tools used during the Paleolithic technology. Now, Paleolithic age is divided into lower, middle, and upper Paleolithic. Okay, lower Paleolithic spans from 2.6 million to 1,500 years before Common Era. Okay, middle Paleolithic 1.5 lakhs all the way up till 40,000 BC. Upper Paleolithic 4,000 to 10,000 BC. So whenever you get confused, just know that Paleolithic age reached all the way up till 10,000 BC. And during the 10,000 BC, it was the end of Ice Age. Have you guys ever watched the movie Ice Age? Right? It's a very interesting movie. Okay, they used to live at a time when the temperature was extremely low and everything was snowy. The Ice Age was similar to that. Okay, the Ice Age stopped approximately 10,000 years before Common Era, before year 1. The Ice Age stopped, and then in the Mesolithic we will find that they lived in warmer climates. Okay, so there was semi-permanent settlement, and then the climate became much more stable during the Neolithic phase, and people started practicing agriculture and so forth. Okay, so climate is also a very important factor in knowing about your food habits, about the culture and so forth. So in Paleolithic, 2.6 million all the way up till the end of Ice Age. Beshi thanda time de Paleolithic age thakishe. Now you look at all the tools. These were the tools used during the lower, middle, and upper Paleolithic age. Okay. And if you look at it, right, what is the one thing that you notice? The tools, it became smaller, lighter, and more specialized. Okay. More specialized. For example, right now you do not use your pen in order to unscrew. right? In order to unscrew, you use a screwdriver. Okay, you do not use chalks for. You do not only have chalks for writing. You also have pen, pencil, color pencil, and so forth. Okay, everything tools became more specialized. Back then, they only had one tool for a lot of purpose, but they had multiple tools for multiple purposes here in Upper Paleolithic age. Tools became much more specialized. This is the Paleolithic age and the Paleolithic technology in brief. Okay. So these are the important Paleolithic sites of India. You look at Gondwana, Thar Desert, Rajasthan. Okay, Rajasthan is a land of, it's an arid region, which means Shibak the desert as a. I still remember back in 2012, when I was in Sainik, we went for a trip to Rajasthan, and we had the privilege of sitting inside a tank and riding all the way from one end of the desert till the other end. It was a wonderful experience. But one thing about desert is it is very hot. Okay, so Gondwana, Thar Desert, Rajasthan, open air Paleolithic site in the Thar Desert, and this is also one site. You can take a look at it after the class session. Okay, you can go through the presentation. Swan Valley, number 2, Kashmir. It extends from Jammu to Potwar Plateau. You can read about it after the class session as well. Bori in Maharashtra. This is very important. Okay, it is one of the earliest upper Paleolithic sites in India. Okay, we were asked this in our preliminary question some few years back. Bori in Maharashtra is associated with which of the following periods? And the option they gave us was Mesolithic, lower, middle, and upper. So I've mentioned it as well, so we don't miss out on Bori, Maharashtra. Of all these places, Bori in particular is associated with Upper Paleolithic. Okay, so we also have the Kurnool Caves, which is in Andhra Pradesh. This is also an important Paleolithic cave site. Okay, when it comes to cave, this is an important cave site, Kurnool Caves. Now we will move on to Mesolithic. After the end of the Ice Age came the Mesolithic period. So we saw that during the Paleolithic period, the only tools they used were stone tools. Okay, the only tools they used were stone tools, and the tools were a little large. So when we talk about Mesolithic, we will look at the different tools that they use, and how they live their lives, and the food that they ate, and what kind of settlements they were in. If you look at Mesolithic age, okay, these are the features of the Mesolithic age. They were hunters and gatherers, obviously, the same as Paleolithic age. Their main source of food and livelihood were hunting, fishing, and gathering. But we see that they first domesticated animals. Okay, first animal domestication happened during the Mesolithic age. The dogs were the first animals to be domesticated. Amazing, right? It's a dog. The dogs were the first animals to be domesticated. Now, the people of Mesolithic age also had semi-permanent settlements, which means it wasn't exactly permanent, but they stayed in a certain place for a certain period of time and then they moved from one place to another. We call it semi-nomadic. Okay? Not exactly nomadic. Nomadic people are people who travel from one place to another frequently. They do not have a permanent home, but they were semi-nomadic. They would stay in one place for a certain period of time and then move to another place for a certain period of time. Okay? And so the one thing that you must notice about Mesolithic age, as I've mentioned in the beginning, is that the amazing thing that happened during the Mesolithic age was the end of Ice Age. Okay? And climates became warmer, right? Which is why they settled semi-permanently. They started settling a little bit. And we also see evidence of bow and arrow. This is also another very important point about Mesolithic age. Bow and arrow introduced. That's another important advancement in hunting technology. And rock art becomes very important, okay? So this, you look at the rock paintings of Adamgarh, Madhya Pradesh. Look at the rock paintings. These are filled with animals and humans with bow and arrow, right? These are filled with animals. This painting is filled with animals and human beings with bow and arrow. Okay, so that's very interesting, right here. See, human figures with bow and arrow. And also we also have the rock art, Bhimbetka, Madhya Pradesh, rock art, Lakhudiyar, Uttarakhand. So these are the three rock art or rock paintings that we must memorize when it comes to Mesolithic age. So these are the 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are the 5 features of Mesolithic age. And when it comes to tools, we saw the various tools in Paleolithic age, right? Now it became much more smaller, okay? It became much more smaller. If you look at the tools, you will find that it's small, it's sharp, and it's made on flax using microlithic technique. So the tools became much more smaller, much more specialized, and microlith tools were lightweight, easy to carry, and very highly efficient. Okay, so these are the features of the Mesolithic age. Now, what do we learn here in Mesolithic society and culture? They practice hunting, fishing, and gathering, and settlement, semi-permanent. So caves and open grounds, semi-permanent homes. Okay, so beliefs. They were buried with food and food objects. So there was a, like I said, these are not assumptions of the archaeologists. Okay, these are assumptions of historians. Possible afterlife belief. There's no concrete evidence that there was they believe in the afterlife, because like I said, there's no written record available. So unless they explicitly mentions that they believe in the afterlife, we cannot say for sure. This is a general assumption that they possibly believed in afterlife. So you cannot write the people of Mesolithic culture believe in the afterlife, because the burials were found with food and objects alongside it. You cannot say. Okay, you can only say there is a. It may be possible that the people of Mesolithic culture believed in afterlife because of the food and objects found inside the burial. So that's how you can write in the examination. It's very important that you understand this distinction. So when it comes to art, we have animals, we have hunting, we have dancing through the different rock paintings that we have seen. Now these are the important Mesolithic sites. If you look at the Mesolithic sites, you will find it extends all the way up till Bengal, okay, West Bengal. So Rajasthan, Baghor, Rajasthan, it is the largest and the best documented Mesolithic site. Largest and the best documented Mesolithic site is in Baghor, Rajasthan. So again, Baghor, Rajasthan is associated with which are the following? If they ask you a question, it is Mesolithic age. Okay, this is also another very, just like Puri, Maharashtra of the Upper Paleolithic, Baghor, Rajasthan of Mesolithic age is very, very important for your examination. The rest of the places, you do not have to memorize it. It's not too necessary for you to know it, but Baghor, Rajasthan is the most important out of these 4 to 5 locations that I've given you. And please take a look at this. 1867 to 1868, Archipel Carlisle, the first recorded discovery of Stone Age rock paintings in India at Sohagikat, Mirzapur, Uttar Pradesh. So rock paintings started during the Mesolithic phase. Remember, it did not start during the Paleolithic phase. Rock painting started during the Mesolithic phase, right? And Baghor, Rajasthan is associated with Mesolithic age. And we also studied about the 3 rock paintings of Adamgar, Bhimbetka, Lakhudiyar. Okay, these are the important points that you need to know about Mesolithic age, alongside the various features that I've given you: animal domestication, semi-permanent, bow and arrow. So this is Mesolithic age in a nutshell. Now we move on to Neolithic age. So Mesolithic age ranged from 10,000 BC all the way up till 8,000 BC, just 2,000 years. And then came the Neolithic age. Why 2,000 years? Because there was rapid development. Ice age, people could do nothing. It's ice age, everything is filled with ice. What can we do except hunt, fish, gather? But then came the end of ice age in 10,000 BC, and Mesolithic age started, right? So during the Mesolithic age, climates became warmer, but it wasn't entirely warm. Okay, it took some time, some few thousand years, for the climate to come to the kind of temperature that we know today. So it was a transitional period. The Mesolithic age was a transitional period, but there was rapid development. People started, living semi-permanently, right? They turned from nomadic to semi-nomadic, and in the Neolithic age, all of them matured. Okay, they started living permanently. They started practicing agriculture. Back then, they would hunt foods, right? Already created by nature. Now they create foods through plantation. That's Neolithic phase, Neolithic age. Okay, so the earliest farming communities began cultivating land, domesticating animals, and living in permanent or semi-permanent house. So they had more polished tools. They also practiced pottery. Pottery is also another very important point of the Neolithic age. Okay, pottery wasn't in existence during the Mesolithic and Paleolithic. So pottery started again in the Neolithic phase. So from hunting and gathering to agriculture, domestication, settled life. So even when it comes to domestication, only few animals were found to be domesticated by people of Mesolithic age. But here, they started domesticating a lot of animals, not only dogs but cows and various other cattle. Okay. Now, when we talk about the Neolithic revolution, we are talking about the major shift from being mobile food gathering people to settled agricultural life. So agriculture meaning cultivation of crops, domestication of cattle, sheep, and goats. Settlement, sedentary communities are those communities that settle permanently in a particular place. Okay, so they had permanent settlement. Permanent settlement started with the Neolithic age. Semi-permanent started with the Mesolithic, and Paleolithic, they were all nomadic. They were hunters and food gatherers. They did not settle at all. They moved from one place to another. Okay, I hope the difference is clear. And when it comes to crafts, pottery, and polished stone tools, they were very well polished, and they also practiced pottery. And when it comes to textiles, they practiced spinning and weaving. Okay, so if you look at the life in the Neolithic age, this is AI generated, but this is how life was during the Neolithic era. Okay, it's very interesting, right? They have little huts, permanent settlement, agriculture, animals, and so forth, pottery. All these are present within that one single picture. Okay, so this is Neolithic age in a nutshell. Now these are the important Neolithic sites. We have Merikar, Purzahom, Mahagara, Gufral, Koltiwa. You need to memorize all these sites and the various features of these sites. Okay, so Neolithic age is a very important age, and a lot of questions are asked from the Neolithic age because we do not have much to study when it comes to Paleolithic and Mesolithic age. But here in the Neolithic age, it is the revolutionary age, right? Mesolithic was transitional. Paleolithic, very Purana Zamana. Paleolithic, very crude way of life, which turned into semi-permanent settlement in the Mesolithic area. But in the Neolithic era, they began to live like actual human beings. Okay, domestication of animals, permanent settlement, agriculture, and so forth. These are all important Neolithic sites. If you cover 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these Neolithic sites, you are good to go. Okay, you do not need any other site for Neolithic age here in India. So now we move on to the Chalcolithic age. Chalco meaning copper, Lithic means stone. Okay, Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic, Paleolithic all stone, Mesolithic middle stone, Neolithic new stone, Chalcolithic copper stone age. Okay. So in the Chalcolithic age, what do you notice first? Metal arrives. Okay, metal arrives during the Chalcolithic age. Metal was non-existent during the Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic age. Metal finally arrives, but stone does not immediately disappear. Okay, metal was used alongside stone extensively, which is why it is called Chalcolithic age. And the metal that they used was copper. Okay, so this PPT presents copper as the first metal used in India. why was copper the first, and why was copper used extensively? So copper is relatively softer compared to the later iron technology. Okay, it is easier to shape than stone and can also be worked into very useful objects. So that is why copper was used extensively. Now pendant pottery, especially black and red ware. Pendant pottery, especially black and red ware, became important. Settlements remained mainly rural as social inequalities emerged. So settlements remained mainly rural, okay, and social inequalities emerged. You will find that in the later period, okay, social inequalities. Now pendant pottery, black and red ware. What do you understand by black and red ware? Do they use colors? They do not use colors, okay. So what is pottery made out of? Let's just discuss clay. What is the color of clay? Red, right? And when you burn certain parts of the clay, what color does it become? Black, which is why it is called black and red ware. They create various designs. They'll cover certain portions of the pot, and then they'll burn the remaining open areas, which will create a design. Okay, so they burn it in order to create design, which is why it is called black and red ware. Okay, these names are simply not given. There's technology behind it, and the technology is the burning of pots. Okay, which is why it is called black and red ware. So black and red ware pottery is associated with which of the following age? They are going to ask you a question. Okay, this question anytime, any year. It's a very important question. Black and red ware, Chalcolithic age. Never forget that. Now we will come to settlement and hierarchy of the Chalcolithic society. As we can see, the chiefs, they lived in large rectangular houses. The common people, they live in smaller circular huts. Okay, so there was social inequality during the Chalcolithic age. The chiefs, they lived in larger rectangular houses. The common people, they lived in smaller circular huts. It's very obvious, right? After the permanent settlement emerged during the Neolithic era, and when human beings live together, when a particular community lives together, there will definitely be inequalities. Human beings are filled with greed, ambition, desire. They always move up the ladder. Some people are very ambitious, very competent, whereas some people, they just want a peaceful life. That's the nature of human beings. And eventually inequalities are indispensable, inevitable phenomenons of human progression. And this settlement in the Chalcolithic society is a stark, direct testament of this statement. So there were chiefs and common people, and these are the five. First, we'll look at the Ahar, Rajasthan, okay, a very important Chalcolithic site. Gilun, Rajasthan, a very important Chalcolithic site, and Daimabad, Maharashtra, a very important Neolithic site, famous for copper artifacts. Okay, famous for copper artifacts. They had pendant pottery, beads, copper tools, and Malwa, Madhya Pradesh. Okay, pendant pottery with geometric designs, and Kayatha, Uttar Pradesh, which is located in Itawa district. So these are the five important sites. So this is the Chalcolithic society in a nutshell. They had rural settlements, village and small rural communities, pendant pottery, distinctive pendant designs on pottery. They had copper as well as stone tools, not just copper, but stone tools as well. Use of copper along with stone tools. Social differentiation, evidence of hierarchy between chiefs and common people. This is the example. The chiefs, they live in larger rectangular houses, and the common people lived in smaller circular huts. Now we will move on to Harappa civilization, the first civilization. Okay, we will move on to Harappa civilization, the first civilization. Now, various discoveries were made only during the 1900s. Okay, this Harappan civilization, it started. If you look at the division of time here mentioned, pre-Harappan 5500 to 3000 BC. You do not need to memorize that. Okay, just for your understanding, I mentioned that. Early Harappan, again, you do not have to memorize. You do not have to know. The reason why I said this is every civilization, it doesn't have a particular beginning. Okay, it's a natural progression of agricultural development, cultural development, and so forth. So Harappa civilization, it existed a very long time ago, but we only use 2600 to 1900 BC because that was the peak of urban civilization. Before that, it wasn't too urban, it wasn't too developed. So Harappa civilization ranges from 2600 to 1900 BC. Not because this civilization existed only during this time, but because this was the time when Harappa civilization was at its peak. Okay, so late Harappan, again, it was the phase of decline. You do not need to memorize that. Only the one marked in red is the one that you need to focus on. 2600 to 1900 BC. I repeat, 2600 to 1900 BC. Now, the discovery of Harappa civilization. You will find that there are different cities, okay, that were discovered. So all these formed a part of the Harappa civilization. The first city discovered was Dairam Sahni discovered Harappa. Harappa was discovered by Dairam Sahni in 1921. That was the first discovery, okay? Before 1921, no one even knew that the Harappa civilization existed or the Indus Valley civilization existed. No one knew. It was only in the year 1921, just imagine, it was only in the year 1921 that the first discovery happened, and that was discovered by Dairam Sahni. And in 1922, next they discovered Mohenjo-daro, another city in 1922. And in 1924, John Marshall announced an unknown civilization called Harappa to the world. Okay? Family and friends, we have found a civilization named Harappa civilization in the Indian subcontinent. And he started giving out press releases to the people worldwide. Okay? It became a worldwide sensation overnight, the Harappa civilization. Why was it a massive revelation? Because it rewrote history, right? It instantly pushed the known history of Indian subcontinent back by over 2,000 years. Because Harappa civilization is from 2600 to 1900 BC. So it immediately pushed the history of Indian subcontinent back by 2,000 years. So the people realized that the Indian civilization is very old. It's very old. Okay, that was one realization. It also gave India a global status. It proved that ancient India possessed an advanced urban center. Okay, and the contemporaries, meaning the cities that were there during the time of Harappa civilization, was Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia is a city. It's an old city that was situated in the present-day Iraq. Okay, or as the US would like to call it, Iraq. It was situated in Iraq, and it was the booming period of the Mesopotamian civilization. Trade, commerce, everything was happening at a very rapid pace. And there were evidences that the Harappa civilization was in contact with the Mesopotamians. Now that's a very impressive revelation. Even the Britishers were very shocked that the Indian civilization was very advanced, the Harappa civilization. Okay, so and then eventually it turned out to be, again, even geographically very larger than the Egyptian and the Mesopotamian civilizations combined. Okay, it's not even half. The Egyptian and the Mesopotamian civilization, the geographical extent, the size, wasn't even half of the Harappa civilization. Just imagine. Okay, so people had a very low image of India, but once the discovery was made, the global status of India rose. Okay, so it was in 1924 that John Marshall announced an unknown civilization named Harappa. And now we shall look at the geographical extent of Harappa civilization. Now, when we talk about Harappa civilization, you will come across two cities. Okay, two cities, very popular cities. There are other cities as well: Lothal, Tholavira, Luni, Kalibangan, and so forth. But two important cities are Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. If you look at the map, please take a look at the map. If you look at the map, this is the India map, right? This is the India map. This is the India map. Okay, so this is Mohenjo-daro, and this is Harappa. You will find that Harappa and Mohenjo-daro is situated outside of India. So it doesn't matter how much we talked about the Harappa civilization. The two major cities are situated outside of Harappa, outside of India. So where is it located? It is located in Pakistan. Okay, it is located in Pakistan. So you also need to know where Harappa and Mohenjo-daro is located. It is located in present day Pakistan. The rest we have Rakhigarhi, which is the largest site in India. Largest site in India. Okay, the largest site of the Harappa civilization is Harappa. But the largest site in India, the largest Harappan site in India is Rakhigarhi. Now, why do we call it Harappa? Because it was the first city discovered. The entire civilization was named Harappa because it is the first city that was discovered. So it doesn't mean the Harappa civilization doesn't mean the city of Harappa alone. It consists of all these cities. So it goes southward, Daimabad in Maharashtra, right? And we also have the northward continuation of Harappa civilization, southward continuation of Harappa civilization, the westward, eastward in Uttar Pradesh, in areas of Uttar Pradesh. So Harappa civilization is very vast. So when we talk about Harappa civilization, we're not talking about Harappa city. We're talking about the entire civilization during that period, okay? And we call it Harappa civilization. And another name is Indus Valley civilization, which is no longer used by archaeologists. Because the more they discover, the more they understand that it is further away from the Indus River. Back then, Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, they were near Indus River, okay? But we found cities that were very far away from the Indus River, such as Daimabad. Now, how can we even associate Daimabad with the Indus River, right? So, Indus River, it flows into the Arabian Sea. This is the Arabian Sea, this is the Bay of Bengal. This is the Bay of Bengal. This is the Arabian Sea. Okay, so Daimabad is very far away from the Indus River. So now we don't use the term Indus Valley civilization. Okay, so what do we learn from this map? We learned that Harappa and Mohenjo-daro is not situated in India. The largest site that we have in India is Rakhigarhi. But all these cities from the Harappa civilization. I hope it's clear. The geographical, now you have a visual representation of the entire Harappa civilization, right? Northeast-에도 다 가나야 돼. 나갈랜드에도 아우로 다 가나요. 그다음에도 we were headhunters, right? So the Harappa civilization, I mean, I don't think we even existed in Nagaland, okay, in the year 2000 something BC. Harappa, River Ravi, Punjab. This is Harappa, okay? This is AI generated, but this is how the city would have been, okay? This was created by AI using the different features, evidences found by archaeologists. So this is how the city would have been, okay? The AI, took note of all the ruins of the city, the buildings, the structure and everything, and it created this for us. So this is Harappa in a nutshell. They had a great granary. Again, did they actually have a granary? I'm not sure. No one is sure. Okay, we're just making assumptions because they had a storage facility and it contained some grains. They found some grains. So they assumed that they had a large granary. But no one knows for sure, right? No one knows for sure that it was used for storing grains. But they had a large granary. They had a dancing girl, bronze dancing girl. They had the Pashupati seal. They had the priest king, steatite, made of steatite, which is a crystal, which is which is a metal. And the evidence of woven cloth, we will see this, yeah. In Harappa, and then in Mohenjo-daro, next is the Mohenjo-daro. They had the great bath, and they had large granary. This is the granary, okay? So yeah, they had a storage facility. This is the storage facility. Now it's all filled, okay? This is the storage facility, and they had a large granary, and we do not know for sure whether it was used for grains, but we found evidence of grains inside that storage facility, which is why we call it a large granary. And they also had a great bath. We also do not know whether it was used for bathing. And because they had a great bath located in the city, we can assume that it may have been used for ritual practices, right? And the Hindus, they claim that the great bath was used for, the cleansing of their soul, the cleansing of their sins, and so forth. Okay, these are claims made by the Hindus even to this day. But you cannot write that in an examination. They had the great bath, that's it. but we do not even know if it was used for bathing. And we have the bronze dancing girl. The bronze dancing girl. There's a very interesting technique, okay, called lost wax technique, which is used even to this day. They will, whatever feature they would like to have created, they would first create an image of it, a structure of it using wax. Candle mishnah wax, na? They'll create the image first, and then they'll encase it with a similar structure, and they'll fill it with metal, with bronze. And once the bronze dries, right, it becomes a statue. Okay, so that's called lost wax technique. They'll first create the structure using wax. They'll pour over it the metal. The metal to dry na, and then with the structure So bronze dancing girl was created using the lost wax technique. Okay, so we also have the Pashupati seal. If you look at the Pashupati seal, he has 3 horns, and there's animal figures, and there's a script, right? We do not know what this script means, okay? We call it pictographic script because it's a pictorial representation, not actually letters. It's a symbol, and we do not even know the meaning of it because it has never been deciphered. It has never been discovered. Okay, the meaning of these scripts, no one even knows. The earliest deciphered inscription that we have in India is the Ashokan inscription. Ala utula agede beshi ase but none have been deciphered so far. So even the Indus, the script of the Indus Valley civilization hasn't been deciphered. Okay, so we have the Pashupati seal. He's sitting in yogic posture, and we have animals around him with the script. Okay, we also have the priest statue, steatite, which was created using steatite. Okay, so these are the discoveries. This is AI generated. The rest, all these are actual pictures of Mohenjo-daro the Great, but the Great Granary, the bronze dancing girl, the Pashupati seal, and the priest king statue. And Tholavira, which is in present-day Gujarat, the home state of Narendra Modi, or the home state of Adani Ambani, or the home state of Mukesh Ambani, or the home state of Reliance Jio. Everything happens in Gujarat, right? Everything happens in Gujarat. So Tholavira, when we talk about Tholavira, one thing we must understand is it's about water management. They had a very good water management facility. Tholavira is known for water management. Just in the same way that Mohenjo-daro is known for Great Bath, Tholavira is known for water management. We were asked this question, I think, far as I can remember, after 4 preliminary examinations that I've given and 4 mains that I've appeared, the question about Tholavira was asked at least 3 times, okay? And every time it was about water harvesting, water management, everything related to water. So that's one of the favorite questions. Tholavira city had very good water management facility. They had a water management facility, water reservoir, water harvesting system. So Tholavira, water. Always remember that. Okay, there's also another city of the Harappa civilization alongside Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, which I've already explained. The third city is Tholavira, Gujarat. Okay, these 3 are very important cities. And next we will have Lothal, which is again in Gujarat. It is a dockyard. Okay, it has a dockyard. These are dockyards, right? These are dockyards for the ships to come and dock. Okay, so the dockyard, the Lothal, it was the dockyard of the Harappa civilization. It was through Lothal that they would travel to different places, especially the Mesopotamian cities. Okay, they connected with the Mesopotamian cities through sea routes. They would travel from ships. They would send them certain items, and they would come back with certain items. There was this exchange of goods. We talked about barter system, right? Exchanging of one good with another. So barter system existed during the Harappan civilization. We will discuss on that. So in Lothal, they also found double burial. The actual picture, okay, the actual picture is very scary, but since you guys might find it a little scary, I chose the one that's least scary. So this is double burial. They might be lovers, right? They might be lovers. They might have died together. Just like the story of Bombay. They might have died together. But again, the double burial might mean anything. It means there were couples, right? There were marriage, matrimonial alliance. Existence of matrimonial alliance could also be one assumption. We can assume a lot of things, okay? And we could also find out if they were both males, in which case we can also talk about homosexuality and stuff, right? And also we can also say that double burial means it was a ritualistic practice of two people being buried together. So all these are assumptions. All these are assumptions, okay? Archaeologists will just give us that it had double burial, and that's all you need to write in your examination. Don't go extra najabi, okay? There were also evidence of rice house spit hagishe, and then maritime trade, lotal, right? Maritime trade means lotal, maritime sea trade, maritime trade, and they also found Persian Gulf seal. Very interesting. They also found Persian Gulf seal. Now, Persian Gulf is a gulf that connects India with the various kingdoms and societies of that type, even the Mesopotamian civilization. Okay. Now, we will move on to the next, the Harappan sites. Please take a look at it. So these are the rest of the Harappan sites. Okay, we have Surkotata, which in the city of Surkotata they found house remains, and in Kalipangan, which is also called Black Bengals. Okay, Kalipangan means Black Bengals. Kalipangan also means Black Bengals. Plow marks using the plow. There were different marks, and fire altars. Again, fire altars would mean they believed in rituals, maybe, or maybe right? Again, another assumption that we could make, but we shouldn't. We only need to mention that they had blow marks, fire altars, camel bone. Okay, so we also see the existence of camel. And in Janutaro, they also had bead making factory, and they also had import. And Janutaro is the only city without a citadel. Only major city, not only city, because discoveries might be made next year, and then if you write in the examination it is the only city without a citadel, you might be wrong. So you can say that it is one of the only major cities without a citadel. The rest, they all have citadels, okay? And I will explain that later as well. Janutaro. So bead making factory, this is the bead making factory. This is the bead making factory. This is a factory, yeah. At the time they didn't have iPhones, so the picture quality is a little low. Sukkot Gender, evidence of trade with Babylon. They also had trade with Babylon, Sukkot Gender. And Mitatal, terracotta cartwheel. Terracotta. Look at the terracotta cartwheel. Very impressive, right? The cartwheel, the tire. They also have terracotta cartwheel made out of terracotta. And it's a kind of clay, okay, terracotta. It's a kind of clay. Biridana, very early Harappan, pre-Harappan evidence, and so forth. So these are the sites that you can memorize alongside Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Janutaro, and Lothal. Okay? And Tolavira. So Tolavira, water management, Lothal, dockyard, Mohenjo-daro, Great Bath. Don't forget this, okay? And so we'll take a look at the Harappa town planning. This is what I mean by citadel. Citadel. Let's take a look at it. So if you look at it, we will find the citadel, which is a raised fortified sector in which maybe the rich people lived, okay, and the ruling class lived, the elite class lived. We do not know who lived here, but we assume that very powerful people lived there, and they were the ones who administered the entire Harappa civilization. And they always had the citadel and the rest of the city. Okay, in Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, every city follows the same structure. They have the citadel, and they also have the lower town, which is again in grid pattern, right, with intersections. See, very impressive. Intersecting roads, grid pattern streets. So it also had drainage system, okay, alongside every road. So this was the Harappan town planning. This is the Harappan town planning. Harappan cities were carefully planned urban centers. They had grid pattern. They used burnt bricks, and the settlement overall was very organized. Okay, even to this day, we cannot beat Harappa civilization. Dimapur can never beat Harappa civilization, right? So this was a very impressive feature of the Harappa city. So we have the citadel, upper section, and then we have the lower section, and then the streets had grid-like arrangement, tuck, 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 and the houses had organized urban layout with proper drainage, and they also had fortifications, walls, maybe to protect themselves from their enemies. Okay, so which means the Harappa civilization wasn't entirely fully peaceful. Maybe they had conflicts with other areas. We don't know. Okay, so walls and fortifications were visible at Dhalavira and Lothal. Now let's take a look at the Harappan drainage system. So this is how the Harappan drainage system looked. Okay, they have the house, the street train, rastala majude street la train aze, Gorkhan la private train aiwo, pani aiwo, right? And utu piside main train ina jai jawo. Impressive, right? That was how the Harappan drainage system was. They had the house, they had the private train, they had the street train, they had the covered train, they had the main train. Okay. And so this was a very excellent drainage system, carefully planned street and trains integrated into the urban layout. So this is the overall, and they use burnt bricks. Now, the thing about burnt bricks is that if you dry the bricks under the sun, it's not durable. It can crack very easily. But if you burn it, it is more durable. It lasts longer. So the Harappans, they knew about that. So they burned the bricks. Okay. Now we look at the Harappan economy. The Harappan economy, agriculture, crafts and industry, trade, urban economy. Okay, so we will learn about that in the following few slides. Trade played a very important role in the Harappan economy. They had standardized weights and measures. Now imagine that 1 kg in Harappa is 2 kgs in Mohenjo-daro. They will never be able to conduct trade this way. They need to have a standard system of weights and measurements. So they had standardized weights and measurements, which were accepted across different cities during the Harappa civilization. Okay, seals were closely associated with trade. Now, seals were closely associated with trade. When I talk about seals being closely associated with trade, I do not mean that they used the seal for payment. Seals were either, they were very hard material, or sometimes they would be imprinted on a particular product to show that that particular businessman is sending that particular product to that particular company. Okay, so that's the kind of identification. Seal serves as a kind of identification. We cannot say for sure, but one thing we know is that barter system existed. That's the only evidence that we have. The barter system existed. There was no evidence of using silk as a medium of currency, medium of exchange. Okay, so barter was used, and no metal money was used during the Harappa civilization. So if you are asked in examination, they used a barter system. No metal money was used. Very important point. Okay. Now we look at the Harappan trade networks. Now you need to be very sincere about this, because once I explain it, it will create a visual representation of the entire Harappan civilization. Okay, now I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. Now if you look at Lothal, Harappan sila osore asudo, right? But Mohenjo-daro sila osore nai. So you can find that Harappan Sea, Lothal. This is why the Harappan civilization, they chose Lothal as a dockyard, where the ships would park, and then they would carry the products from here and go all the way up via the Arabian Sea to Mesopotamia. Okay, and various other parts of the world. Okay, so they use Lothal as a dockyard. And if you look at, so there were two possible ways in which the Harappa initiated trade. One through sea route and another through land route. So through sea route we saw Lothal, right? Now this part of the Indian map is this part, okay? Okay, so this is India. So in the Mesopotamian inscription, there's this term called Meluha. In the Mesopotamian inscription, there's this term called Meluha, which refers to the Harappa civilization. So we knew about the trade with Mesopotamia through their inscriptions, which mentions about Harappa civilization. And Harappa civilization, the name given to Harappa civilization was Meluha. Okay, so from Meluha, they would go to Central Asia. Central Asia. This is Afghanistan. Okay, this is Afghanistan area. They would from Meluha, which was Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, they would go to Central Asia via land route. Okay, but they would go to, let's say, Mesopotamia using the sea route via Lothal. Okay, so this is how they used to trade. This is how they used to trade. Now you understand the Indian map, right? Everybody knows about the Indian map, so it's very easy to understand how they connected with the rest of the world. The Central Asia through land routes, and then the Mesopotamian and other Babylon through sea route via Lothal. Okay, is that understandable? I hope it's understandable. So major Meluha exports. Meluha meaning Harappa. What did they export? Carnelian, lapis lazuli. It's semi-precious stone, lapis lazuli, and carnelian is a quartz, a kind of crystal, carnelian, and they had the copper, they had the gold. Okay, they exported these products and they brought back to India, and what we possibly returned to them might have been silver. Okay, because the inscription of the Mesopotamian people mentions that Meluha, the silver that they had, what belonged to the Meluha region. It came from Meluha. So maybe we gave them silver in exchange for lapis lazuli, carnelian, copper, and gold. Okay, so that's the trade that they had. So Mesopotamian references. These are the three Mesopotamian references. Itu the alak jaga se, itu be out of India, out of Indian subcontinent. But Meluha, itu out of three divisions they gave, Meluha was Harappa civilization. Okay, Dilmundi is a major Gulf trading region, and Magan is parts of Oman and the Arabian Peninsula. So not important. You just need to know Meluha. So how did the Harappans trade? So this is how the Harappans traded. Okay, it's just an explanation. It's just a reiteration of what I've already explained. Sea trade and land trade. Land trade with Central Asia. I've explained that, including Afghanistan. And ships and boats and sails trade with Mesopotamia. Lothal was used as a dockyard. Okay, and then the meaning of Meluha was seafarers. Okay, so they gave us the term Meluha, and the term means seafarers. It's amazing. So they used bullock carts, and then they had trade with Afghanistan. Shodukai is another name for Afghanistan. Okay. Now we will come to standardization of trade. So this is the standardization. Standardization simply means making the system uniform, the same unit of measurement. If I say, can you give me 2 pieces of chewing gum? 2. If by 2 it means 4 for you, then you will give me 4 pieces of chewing gum. But we know that 2 means 2. 1, 2. So that's standardized. We use a standardized system of numbers and letters. A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4. And in the same way, they had their own standardized system of measurement, trade. They had the weights, uniform and regulated. They had the measurement, which was uniform across settlements. They also have seals. Those seals were used uniformly across the Harappa civilization. Like I said, seals sometimes indicated that indicated ownership. It also indicated genuine products. It might be a sort of certification saying that if a certain product came from a certain company and it contains a seal of that company, then people trusted that product. Okay, just in the same way, arguably we use a shoe, and then if it's Adidas, then we trust that product. If it's Nike, we trust it. If it's Puma, we trust it, right? But if it's Sparks, maybe something like that. Harappan industry and crafts. Okay, they had the textiles, spindles, and hurls, which weaves cotton, right? So spindle and hurls, I'm sure all the girls know about it. So they used to weave cotton. Cotton was an important commodity of the Harappan industry. Okay, cotton. Don't forget that cotton was an important commodity of the Harappan industry. And they also practiced brick making. I talked about burnt bricks, right? Burnt bricks instead of sun-baked bricks. So burnt bricks and metallurgy, meaning metals. They had bronze. So bronze was made by mixing. Bronze is made by mixing copper and tin. Okay. So copper is very scarce in India. So it wasn't widely used. Bronze was very precious during the ancient time. Even to this day. Okay, we export a lot of copper from outside India. Mon India the itata copper do which is scarcity as a copper la. So even during the Harappan civilization, copper was scarce. They didn't have much copper, so they would export copper from other regions and they would bring it back and then they would mix it with tin and form bronze. Okay, bronze is made by mixing copper and tin. So bronze was widely used, and bead making, bead necklaces, bracelets, amulets, and so forth. Okay, so it was made using shells, hamuk, ceramics, glaze, stay tight. Okay, so craft specialization was an important part of the urban life of the Harappans. Okay, so in your examination, you can use all these 4 features when they ask you about Harappan industry and crafts. Right? Now we have Janhudaro. Again, I've added one special slide for the city of Janhudaro, which is the only city without a citadel. I've explained that. Without a citadel, ruling class la Chakado. So Janhudaro, they had a bead making factory, and it looks something like this. Okay, it looks something like this. They used to make beads. So specialization. Other finds, we also have inkpot, terracotta objects, and city without a citadel, Janhudaro. So this bead making factory, the reason why I explained that is because craft specialization is a very important feature of the advancement of any society. Craft specialization. Now, Janhudaro is only one of the many examples of craft specialization during the Harappan period. Okay, they specialize in various crafts. So, craft specialization reflects the advancement of a community, advancement of a society. And Janhudaro is a perfect example. They had very well laid out rooms where they would make beads. Okay, and it went on from one generation to another. It was a family heirloom, which is again even more impressive. So they had craft specialization, which is why the civilization is very, very advanced. Now we will take a look at the religious beliefs. They had the mother goddess. These are things found in the Harappan sites. Okay, this is a seal, Pashupati figure, a very small figure, and we also have a statue of mother goddess which they found. So if you look at the mother goddess, pachachutik tas na, pachachutik tas to utu pacha payas na, pacha pukhina se. But I'm 100% sure, pacha bala. I mean, I'm 99.9% sure. Okay. But that's just an assumption that I can make, really, Pachapala, which is why a lot of scholars, they associate mother goddess with fertility. The people of the Harappan civilization, they pray the mother goddess for fertility. And maybe, okay, I'm not sure, maybe she was indeed the goddess of fertility, which is why she has a baby, right? And so that's one. And another Pashupati figure, which I've explained earlier, right? Male deity, 3-horned head, yogic posture. Yogic means pujina iniga sadhukanina buena with the legs folded. That's yogic posture. And animal figures. And then the script. Okay, and then the script. So that's Pashupati figure. So these two, they give us a they give us some hints that they practice religion, they believed in gods and goddesses, and mother goddess, the goddess of fertility, because she has a baby, right? So these are evidences that we have to conclude that the Indus people believed in gods. But that's just an assumption. So the proofs are mother goddess, the Pashupati figure. Okay, these are the two important figures to understand the beliefs. And we also have the trees, animals, and sacred symbols. Okay, so seals may have also been used as amulets. That's another very important point. We have the people tree, we have the one-horned rhinoceros, we have the hump bull, and other sacred animals. So, see, this is the people tree, people leaves, right? And one-horned rhinoceros, and then the humped bull with a very large hump. Okay, so these are the seals found in the Harappan sites. Now we will come to the Harappan script. Okay, it's very confusing, Harappan script. No one has been able to understand what this script exactly is. It hasn't been deciphered so far. Okay, but we call it pictographic script because they use a picture-like symbols to explain. Okay, even though it's still not understood what these pictures mean, and we also found about 400 signs of these symbols, 400 signs, and it might mean sounds, ideas, objects. We don't know. Okay, what these objects mean? What does it imply? So, and in that script, there is one style. Okay, not all Indus inscriptions are postrophodon, but some inscriptions are postrophodon, which means postrophodon. The meaning of postrophodon itself is the ox turning while blowing a field. It's a Greek derivative. Okay, bos means ox, and then strophe or something means like blowing. Okay, plowing a field. So how does the ox plow a field? Have you ever been to a field? Most of you might not have too much experience, but when an ox plows a field, okay, if this is a field, the farmer would start off here, and then he would start plowing the field, and then he would move this way, and then again he would go this way, then left, then right, then left, then right, and so forth. That's how an ox plows. So postrophodon style is simply that. Okay, now let me give you an example of how postrophodon style would be. So imagine I'm writing, okay, this is me, my name, men is Lngau, okay, and my something like favorite food is something like that, from left to right and then right to left. Maybe he was too lazy. Okay, like I went all the way up till here. I don't want to start from here again. I wish to continue, right? So maybe that might have been the case. It was a lazy thing, or I don't know. So that's postrophodon style. Okay, not all Harappan scripts are postrophodon based. Okay, but some of the Harappan scripts are written in postrophodon style. Again, that's also just an assumption. Until we know the actual meaning of what these scripts mean, we can never conclude with certainty that this is exactly what it is. So this is the Harappan civilization in a nutshell. Urbanism, we had land cities and drainage, which we learned about earlier, and economy, we talked about agriculture and crafts and trade with Mesopotamia, Central Asia, and then textiles, right, cotton, and we also talked about metals, copper. Bronze was made by mixing copper and tin, and then we also had beads, okay, and religion, the mother goddess, and then the Pashupati in yogic posture, and we also had symbols of nature like people tree and so forth, and script right now pictographic, undeciphered. Okay. So the Harappans were an urban civilization characterized by planned cities, standardized weights, specialized graphs, and long distance trade. I hope it's clear. Now we will learn about the Harappan political life. Okay, bear with me. We only have around 10 slides for today. This is the Harappan political life. So we will discuss about who might have possibly ruled. Okay, what kind of structure, political structure, existed during the Harappan era. We don't know for sure. Okay. Now, in the Harappan, we have a very fascinating question: who ruled the cities? We don't know, and that is not a failure of history. Okay, that is a historical conclusion that we do not know. Archaeology hasn't given us a definitive answer. So, but we do have evidence of organization, which we will see in the next slide. Okay, we do have evidence of organization. We do not know who ruled the cities. Were they priests? Were they businessmen? Or were they religious people? We do not know. We have no idea. But what we do have is it had a systematic city planning, uniform brick sizes, similar city layouts, standardized weights and measures, excellent drainage system. Now, ask yourself this question: if there's no one to impose this uniformity, would Harappan civilization even exist? There must have been someone with that idea that applied this uniformity across all the cities, right? So it is very safe to assume that they had a ruling class. But we do not know whether this ruling class was an elite section of the society, or the religious leaders, or democratic leaders maybe. But we do not have evidence of voting. We do not know. All we know is that the city was created very systematically. It had uniform brick sizes, similar city layouts, standardized weights and measures, excellent drainage system. Okay, so even if we say that it might have been ruled by priests, because we saw the religious symbols, Mother Goddess, Pashupati, but we found no temples at major sites. Again, no temples. So again, no conclusion on that. Merchants, it might be. Why? Because I showed you the strong trade networks with Central Asia, with Mesopotamia, and we also have standard weights, standardized system of weighing, and we also have craft protection. But then again, there's no evidence identifying merchants as rulers. Okay, the best answer is Najene. We do not know. Okay, we do not know who ruled. You cannot just write in your examination it was ruled by a ruling class, priestly class, elite class. You cannot do that. Okay, we do not know. That's the best answer for your examination. Now, this is the two possibilities that I think might have been the case, but we do not know. Possibility one, priest evidence, but we had evidence of the seal and the Mother Goddess, but no temples have been found. Merchant class, notes suggest that merchants may have ruled. So this has a very high possibility. But here's the thing, right? When it comes to Harappa civilization, we do not have evidence of a democratic system there. The basis of a system in a democracy is voting, and we do not have any evidence of voting or so forth. But we have a very strong evidence of the merchant class. Okay, so muila hisab te merchant class can rule again. Because kings can rule to have the kind of mindset to create such a grid-like structure and all that, it must have been a great businessman or a great class of a group of elite class that's very good with business. That might have been the case, but we can never rule out religion. Any time in the period of history around the world, we never rule out religion. So these are the two possibilities. It's just a discussion, okay? It's just a discussion. Now, Harappan society. Now, excavations in Mohenjo-daro reveal a layered society with distinct occupational and social group. Okay, we have evidence of the existence of priests. We saw the statue of the priest right earlier, and we also know about the existence of merchants based on the seals that we found, and artisans, Janudaro, bead making factories, and cultivation, the rice huts, the large granary. Remember? So it was a combination of group of people with distinct occupational identities. There were different social groups. So that was Harappan society. Okay, They had priests, they had merchants, they had artisans, and they had cultivators. And for games and entertainment, dice. Have you guys ever played dice? Hello. And then terracotta figurines, toys that children play. I showed you guys the wheel, terracotta wheel. Harappan society shows evidence of social and occupational differentiation, specialization. Priests, merchants, artisans, and cultivators. Okay, so these were the different groups of people that lived during the Harappan phase. So houses. So everyday life in Harappan cities. This is everyday life in Harappan cities. Houses were made of baked bricks, not sun-dried bricks. Okay, this is a very important distinction. They might ask you guys in the examination. And rooms around the courtyard, separate bathroom, and well, most houses even had toilets. Just imagine, toilets. Some were single or double story. Double story tak bhi thagi chhe Harappan civilization de double story tak bhi thagi chhe. They had specialized artisans, potters, bead makers, metal workers, and we also have evidence of standardized weights and tools. Workshops found within residential areas. Okay, so it was very easy for the people to access those workshops, those shops, stores. Local markets within cities like this one, and they trade in goods like beads, copper, coal, pottery, textiles. Long distance trade with Mesopotamia and Central Asia, I talked about that. Mesopotamia via sea road using Lothal as a dockyard, and Central Asia land using pulao carts all the way till Afghanistan and modern day Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, and so forth. Okay, all parts of Central Asia. And we also have streets laid in grid pattern. I talked about tuck, 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 tuck. That's grid pattern. Well-planned drainage system. We can see the drainage system. And trains connected to sock pits, one of the most advanced drainage systems of the ancient world. Okay, there hasn't been a civilization in the ancient era that had more advanced drainage system than the Harappan civilization. We also have artisans, merchants, traders, and cultivators. I hope it's all clear. So entertainment, dice. This is dice and terracotta figurines. All these figurines are real. Okay, these figurines were found in Harappan sites. Now this is Harappan agriculture. Wheat plus barley. Wheat plus barley. It was the principal cereal crops of the Harappan civilization. And pulses, peas and other oil seeds, sesame and mustard, and cotton. Among the earliest known evidence of cotton cultivation, rice and millets. Evidence found particularly in eastern and southern region. Okay, so these were the food items found in the Harappan cities. And Kalibangan. Okay, let's take a look at Kalibangan and PSC fact Kalibangan evidence of a plowed field. This is very important for Kalibangan, the evidence of a plowed field. Like Tolavira water harvesting system, Mohenjo-daro the Great Bath, Janu-Daro bead making factory, Kalibangan is also a place with evidence of a plowed field. If you look at Kalibangan, the plowed field of Kalibangan, they have furrows. Okay, furrows. These are lines called furrows. Okay, where plantation was done, but they had cross furrows, which means it intersected, right? So yadi ki jane alu plantation ko thego pare na alu thaligina kumbakan chal ga manon raja marja yadi aro plantation ko sineki na raja marja alu pakawo alu sabji banawo rice lote khawo ulubi raja marja ulaile do raja marja khawo. So that might have been the case. Okay, but that's called cross furrows, one plantation on top of another. So it existed in Kalibangan. Okay, so it possibly indicates two crops grown together or plant double cropping. Very fascinating, right? They were that advanced. Okay, well, as in Nagaland, we still have the chum cultivation, right? We will plant in one particular area of the land, and then we'll shift to another land, and it will go on for 10 years, and then we will come back to that land. That's called shifting cultivation. But here, iniga advanced lagi siya. Cross furrows. And we will also take a look at the Harappan diet. Okay, so we talked about wheat, barley, peas, sesame, and mustard, plus rice and millets from some region. But and animal food, we have cattle, sheep, goat, and pig. And aquatic food, it's very obvious, right? Fish, Lothal dockyard, they have sea trade with Mesopotamia. Why would they not eat fish? Okay, aquatic food, fish, other food, dates and other fruits. Okay, so everything was available during the Harappan civilization. The Harappan diet was diverse. So this is important for your NPSC. The question, rapid fire. Okay, this is NPSC rapid fire. Major cereal crops, wheat and barley. Early cotton cultivation, Harappa civilization. Okay, before Harappa civilization, cotton nahi there. It's a very important distinction. The earliest cotton cultivation that we know now today in Indian history is Harappan civilization. And blood field, Kalibangan. Cross furrows, Kalibangan. Reservoirs and water management, Dholavira. I talked about Dholavira water management system. And was rice the principal Harappan crop? No. Okay, rice was not the principal Harappan crop. They didn't even plant it. Plantation like evidence of Pinay, but we saw that they had access to rice. That's it. But it was not the principal Harappan crop. The principal Harappan crop was wheat and barley. Wheat and barley, and that's it. That's it. Wheat and barley. So important domesticated animal, cattle, obvious, and evidence of aquatic food. Is that understandable? So this is just again another summarized slide to help you guys catch up with whatever we've learned. Urban planning, grid city plan with organized street layouts, standardization, uniform weights and measures across all sites. The drainage, sophisticated covered urban drainage system. Trade, we talked about long distance trade networks across regions with Mesopotamia and Central Asia. And crafts, we have beads, textiles, metals, pottery. And water management, especially at Dholavira, reservoirs and channels. So we'll take a look at the decline of Harappa civilization. Okay, this slide shows post 1900 loss of uniformity. So new populations entering the Indus basin during the time, and hordes of jewelry buried underground, groups of skulls found together, evidence of insecurity and violence during that period. Okay. Now, post 1900 BC, major Harappan civilization ranges from 2600 BC all the way up till 1900 BC. And from 1900 BC to 1500 BC, there was a decline of Harappa civilization. Okay, and in 1500 BC comes the Vedic period, the early Vedic period, 1500 to 1000, 1000 to 600, later Vedic period, and from 600 the rise of kingdoms, actual kingdoms, and so forth. That's how we're going to study. So between 1900 and 1500, it was the period of decline of the Harappa civilization. Okay, now okay, so very important. Why is there that what's the possibility? What possibly can you find about the decline of the Harappa civilization? Why did they decline? There's no single universally accepted cause, okay, about the decline of the Harappa civilization. As you can look at the slide, 1900 onwards, there was a decline. It might be due to environmental changes. It might be due to changes in river systems, weakening of trade networks, ecological pressures, and so forth. And it might also be the shift in settlement patterns. They might have migrated to another place. We don't know. And some people say that they were submerged by the rivers. That might also be the case. And it might also be the social and economic transformation. Maybe the trade networks were closed, and then the Harappan civilization's economy underwent a rapid downfall. There are lots of possibilities that we can assume, but there's no concrete evidence that this was the case. So when in the examination, when they ask you about the decline of Harappa civilization, you can give all these possibilities, okay, submergence, and then migration, okay, and then maybe attack from the enemies, or environmental changes, or maybe even the change in the river system. They no longer had access to drinking water and so forth. It changes, right? The river changes its course sometimes. So that might have been the case. Okay, so but the decline of urban civilization doesn't mean disappearance of the Harappan people. The urban civilization declined in 1900 BC, but the Harappan civilization continued to exist all the way up till 1500 BC. Okay, but again, is the Harappan civilization the same people as the people of Vedic age? It's very interesting, huh? because same jaga ra inika ayase to ekbar merge hui jase to they might have been the same people. And the most fascinating thing is that the evidences of the early and later Vedic period and the evidence of the Harappa civilization, they do not match. Okay, so there's no evidence suggesting that these are the same group of people, even though they live just few hundred years apart. That's what's fascinating about them. The culture, the way of life, the religious beliefs, everything felt different. That's another distinction that I like to inform you guys before we start off with the Indus Valley, not Indus Valley, the early Vedic, and then we will move on to the later Vedic tomorrow. So that's a complete timeline. We talked about the major Harappan. Now that's the period that we focus on entirely today, and we discussed about the decline of the Harappan civilization. So by 1500s, the Harappan cities had declined almost fully. Okay, and then begins the early Vedic period and then later Vedic period. Okay, so the Harappan civilization spanned over 4,000 years, from early food production to the decline of the great cities. So I hope the Harappa civilization is clear. I hope all of you have understood the Harappa civilization. I hope all of you have understood the different cities located in different countries, in different parts of India, Indian subcontinent. And I hope you guys have understood the trade relations with Mesopotamia, the present-day Iraq, and then the trade relations via land routes with Afghanistan. Okay, sea via Lothal, where they had the dockyard where the ships docked at, and from Lothal, Arabian Sea, all the way up till Mesopotamia. Okay, Meluha, the reference of Mesopotamia, which meant the Harappa people.